So I would like to make a motion to approve Resolution 24-41 to reappoint and appoint members to the boards and commissions as follows. For the Planning and Zoning Commission, for Place 1, Adam Coffey with a term expiring June 2026. Place 2, Terry Wilkinson, term till June 2025. Place 3, Nazir Dedarali with a term through June 2026. Place 4, David Ricci with a term ending June 2025. Place 5, Lanny Huggins with a term ending June 2026. Place 6, Linda Bjorn with a term ending June 2025. And Place 7, Rashit Gupta with a term ending June 2026. For the Texas Student Housing Authority, reappointing Scott Bradley, James Krekov, and Richard Mueller for terms ending June 2026, and to appoint the current town council to serve as the Zoning Board of Adjustment with terms ending in agreement and current end of council terms.
Been a motion made for the boards and commissions. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thanks, Tammy. Okay, now, John, sorry.
Evening, Council. Relatively light slate for you guys this evening due to the summer holidays and summer months, so I'll get right into it, including this Wednesday, both Town Hall and Municipal Court will be closed to observe the Juneteenth holiday. Town Hall Municipal Court will be closed to observe Independence Day on July 4th. Our next Planning and Zoning meeting will be Tuesday, July 9th at 5 o'clock. And then our next Town Council meeting will be Monday, July 15th, starting at 4 p.m. And I know we mentioned this in our last meeting, but we're getting really close with our new website launch in just a couple of weeks. We're tying up all the loose ends right now, and we should be ready to go. And we're all very excited. And thank you guys for who didn't have your pictures taken. I know a couple of you guys got them today, so we'll have those done for the website as placeholders, and then we'll hire a professional photographer to come out and get the group shots and then brand new individual ones as well. So stay tuned for that. And I'll be working with Diana to get you guys on the schedule. Those are items of community interest.
Okay, hey, John, just two things real quick. You and I talked about this. I just want to give everybody a heads up. For July 4th, we're going to partner with the Town of Trophy Club on their Stars and Stripes. We have 700 flags ordered that we're going to solicit volunteers to do Davis Boulevard. It should look very impressive. So
yes.
That's a big thing that I'll need some help getting. We have the flags, just getting the volunteers to do that.
And we've got your. I know you're going to ride in the parade as well for Trophy Club.
Yep.
Is that still okay? So we've got
Absolutely.
your decals ready and
Mayor
your
Tiffany.
office.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So all right.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
And then the last thing I have, I just got to bring up. I think everybody's heard. We had some tragic news this last week of one of the Westlake Academy middle schoolers, Isaac Barajas, if I'm saying that right. But just a tragedy, and Dr. Rich, I know you sent a note out, and we have counselors at school, but I just want, on behalf of the council and board, just our prayers and thoughts are with the family and friends, and just tragic. But I just want to make sure everybody knew that, and please let us know how it's going at school, and with the teachers and counselors. Okay, thank you. Next on our agenda, item G is presentation, police services report. Chief Fortune, how are you?
So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you all for letting me be here to give you all this report. If you look through the packet, there's a ton of information in this report, and I promise you I will not go line item by line item on this thing. I want to hit the highlights, the things that I want you to make sure that you're aware of. And by all means, any of you that want to have more information about any of the programs or services that we provide, I encourage you to reach out to us, and I'll be happy to have you come over to the police department, give you a tour, and have one-on-one with you and answer any questions that I can. I know you got a large agenda tonight, so I'll try to make this as seamless as possible, but I also wanted to give a little context to the new council members. Ms. Ritchie, Dr. Ritchie, thank you. I haven't met you yet, but welcome. And so any questions that you guys have, we can move forward. So just real quick history, the contract with Keller providing police services for the town of Westlake started in 2002. You can see each of the different contracts and the full-time employees that we had at the police department. Until last year, we renewed for another term, and then that's going to take us through 2028. So we used to have just one beat covering the northern area of Keller. When we came into the contract, we added a district, and we divided each of those districts, north and south, and the whole northern sector, or the whole northern areas of each of those districts are the town of Westlake. I know last year there was we collected a lot of data and stats and provided to council as far as how much activity and how much time we're actually spending in the town of Westlake. We can provide that data again, but we did that last year as well, just as an FYI. So the good thing that I wanted to show you guys next is what you do not have to pay for that you get for free. So we have a general fund that we take care of y'all's contract with, but there's another fund that we have with the city of Keller is the Crime Control and Prevention District. And what that is that anyone that comes into the city of Keller, every quarter cent that they pay in Keller goes into this fund. So we use that fund for all capital needs, equipment, large ticket items. And this is just an example of we're in the process of getting that approved for fiscal year 25. And you can see the dates that we're going to be going to council. We've already presented it to our board, but there's only one position that is funded through this CCPD, and that is our accreditation manager. And so the whole program plus her salary is included there. You can see operations, the type of items that we're funding. All of our vehicle replacements, SWAT vehicles. This year we are buying or contributing with the 5 other agencies that are on our regional SWAT team, an armored vehicle. And you can see there's a lot of other items that are large ticket items that are funded through CCPD that comes out of neither your or Keller's general fund. Technology, all of our software and investigative tools and products come through CCPD. A couple years ago, we had a complete changeover for our computer-aided dispatch records management system with a very high ticket item that we're still paying on. But as you can see here, all of these items are coming through CCPD. And again, the town of Westlake pays nothing towards it. This is a service that you get free. Just a couple of items that I just wanted to bring your attention to before we move on. We are currently in the process of doing a pretty significant $5 million renovation project to our police department, 100% funded through this CCPD. So it's a valuable asset for us. So the current contract that we are going to be looking at this year, the estimate for fiscal year 25, you can see it increased by 4.93%, but it's going to be $1.2 million. And you can see the 12.7 is the general fund operating budget for the Keller Police Department. And when we do provide this to you, it'll be broken down a little bit better than this. This is just an estimate for you guys to see it early. So a lot of these missions, values, and philosophy, I won't go into details right now, but anytime you want to talk about any of these, I'll be happy to tell you my opinion and my feelings about a lot of these things. Just terms that you will hear around the policing profession, procedural justice. Not only do we encourage our officers and expect our officers to perform in this manner, treating everyone with fairness, dignity, and respect, giving everyone a voice, being transparent in not only our motives but our actions, but also being impartial in all the things that we do. We not only want to do that to our external customers, but also we want to treat each other that way internally. That's our expectation. So just when you get to this slide and you look at some of these quotes, this was written in 1829 by what we consider the modern day the father of modern-day policing, Sir Robert Peel, who started the London Metropolitan Police Department. And one of the biggest kind of common-known, well-known statements is the very, very first one. The ability of the police to perform their duties is dependent upon public approval of police existence, action, behavior, and the ability of the police to secure and maintain public respect. That's so applicable today. And we could go into a lot of detail about a lot of these things, but there's 9 principles, and those are just 3 I wanted to share. So 21st Century Policing started. There was a task force that was initiated in 2014 by President Barack Obama, and then the final report came out in 2015. It was during Ferguson and a lot of the incidents that were surrounding our country. And basically the final report came out, and there were 6 pillars that came out that is an authoritative document over our profession about if you want to be a professional policing organization, here are the things that you need to be presenting and acknowledging. So Pillar 1 was building trust and legitimacy. Again, I'm not going through all of these, but under each of these pillars, I've provided services, reports, programs that the Keller Police Department and how they're adhering to each of these pillars within this document. So if you want to have more information, please by all means reach out to me. But as we move through here, Pillar 2, policy and oversight. One of the things from an external oversight that I do want to stop and mention, obviously the mayor and city councils for the town of Westlake, city of Keller, also that Crime Control Prevention District Board that I just mentioned. Those are citizens that approve those budgets for us. But right now, we are currently accepting applications to my Chiefs Advisory Council. That is a council of citizens, not only from Keller, but Westlake, whether they work or reside in each of those locations. The applications are open through the end of this month, and we'll have a selection process through July. For anyone that, then there's a selection process that includes the current members of my Chiefs Advisory Council. And as we get to the selection process, any members that are either work or reside in the town of Westlake, I'll be coming before you, Mr. Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem, so y'all can review and give your approval before they're appointed.
Do we have people on that today?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you have a couple of folks that work at Schwab. You have a couple residents also.
Perfect.
And you have one Keller resident that's moving to Westlake that's on the council.
Great.
So
Thanks.
just as an FYI. If you're interested in who all these people are on the Keller website, under who we are, the Chiefs Advisory Council, there's their pictures and their bio of every member on the council. So, but as you see, there's a lot of external organizations. The other thing I wanted to bring attention on this slide was our accreditation. You can see not only are we nationally accredited for our law enforcement function, but our communication, which is our dispatch. You can see the years that we reattained our accreditation, and you can see the number of standards that we achieved into getting our national accreditation. The other part is that we are also locally Texas accredited, and you can see the different standards and the years that we were accredited through those organizations as well. Technology and social media, that we have an extensive amount of these items on here, and bear with me just a second, please. So one thing I wanted to bring your attention on this slide was, so Axon, they have many different platforms and products that we have, our in-car videos, our body-worn cameras, our property and evidence technology software. But one thing that we have just now transitioned to, and it is live now, we're about to go a lot wider with it, is so the best analogy I can give is, when you have doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, and you get the text messages of confirming your appointment, or when you're done with the service, they ask you to complete a survey. You can do a survey right there. My90 is that service for law enforcement. And so not only does it give the citizens an opportunity to give us results right after their call, it also will do a survey for our dispatch services, as well as the services that they receive from our police officers. Now, not all calls for service will get the survey. If you're going to a domestic, we're not going to check and see how we did. But there's certain delayed calls, property calls, things like that we've identified, and depending on what type of call it is, will be how soon after we clear the call will they get the survey. And so one thing that we've, by doing some research, talking to other agencies around the country that have gone to these type of platforms, that, there's a concern by officers of, oh my goodness, you're going to let more people just criticize us. What they've realized is that we do a great job all the time, but sometimes it's not enough for citizens to go online, find the email, write the email to determine, to give a commendation. But if it's right there on a text, you can easily hit 5 for, and commendations start to increase. What they've noticed. So we're looking forward to seeing what the results are here. We're looking for positive results. Again, anytime you want to talk, I can tell you about all the investigative software that we have. They're proven successful, et cetera. But I wanted to provide it here in detail.
Hey, Chief, actually on the last slide, I was just going to ask on the flock system.
Yes, sir.
Is that integrating well, and just what your
So
thoughts
we're
are?
still in process. So between Keller and Westlake, we're still working at a lot of the problems are with TxDOT right now. So we're looking at probably 3 to 4 months, I would say, before we're fully implemented. We're getting hits. We haven't received anything that has resulted in an arrest or anything yet. It's still pretty early. But we are also on top of the, once we get it fully implemented, there's a transparency portal that we are going to be, it's going to be for Westlake and for Keller, so you can see the actual numbers of hits, the number of things that resulted of that. And we are also developing, if you go on Trophy Club's website right now, they've got a pretty good transparency part of the website that shows the transparency portal, but also the chief provides a 6-month report about the specific successes and just the results of the flock activity to be more transparent to the citizens, and they can look on their own. We plan on doing the same thing. We're still developing it all. So we're hoping 3 to 4 months will be fully implemented, sir.
Okay. And then, Chief, who monitors all that? Is it the police that monitors the flock system?
Yeah,
Okay.
so
no one else has access to it?
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
no, it comes to us. It's owned by your data is owned by the town of Westlake.
Okay.
And that was the one thing that kind of put a delay on it. It was a little. We were getting conflicting messages between Texas DPS that provides us access to a lot of these databases and Flock, because I was already the person over the law enforcement agency for the city of Keller, and you're supposed to only do one. So when we brought in town of Westlake, they wanted to put me over it. So then we finally got talking to the right person, and they're like, this is like a county that has multiple cities in it.
Okay.
There's no problem. We got it worked out, but it just kind of delayed the process a little bit.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And Mayor and Mr. Quint, we have 18 of 29 cameras up, and the ones closest to the school are already up.
Thank you, sir. Moving on, bullet 4 was community policing. You can see the different areas that we encourage community policing. One area, Dr. Ritchie, that I want to point to you that as you get settled in, we'll be talking about before this next school year is shortly after I came here in 2020, we started a police chief student forum where students get to submit their applications, and then through the school year, they'll meet with me maybe 6 to 9 times a year just to basically talk about the law enforcement community, kind of humanize the badge, talk about interactions or incidents that are going around the country, and just questions that they have, kind of break down those barriers and stereotypes, and just have good conversations. It's up to them. But working out scheduling and things like that, I'll communicate and we'll work that out, but just wanted to bring your attention to that.
Thank you for that. That's great.
Pillar 5 was training and education. Again, this is all stuff that's listed on the website. So one area that I wanted to bring your attention to on this slide is, there's a lot of things that we purposely do to try to make our officers safer. There's 2 programs that this is really for the citizens to be aware of. At the very bottom, there's a nationwide initiative that's trying to bring the number of police officers that were killed in the line of duty below 100. And we've yet to do that in many years. But so there's it's a national initiative, and these are just things that we put around our police department, and we try to encourage our officers. It's things that we have control over. Wear your safety belts, wear your vest, watch your speed. When is what's important now, trying to prioritize the things, not rush, and a reminder that complacency kills. The Texas Police Chiefs Association started a similar program called Vincible, and it's very similar tenets of your body armor, wear your belt, slow down, stay fit. 540 is just making sure you're watching 360 degrees around you horizontally and 80 vertically. So then also this last year, we initiated an overall department wellness and safety program to cover all the different areas to make officers safer. One, we implemented a fitness incentive program where officers that are going to be required to participate in the fitness program. However, we're giving them monetary and award time depending on how well they do. Initiatives just to get in better shape. From a mental perspective, we're trying to work, and we've done I can give you more examples of the things under mental health, not to get into the weeds of it right now. One of the things that we're doing is I want to bring your attention under the emotionals for the dignity in policing. That is a new book by a couple of authors that have been doing research in this area. We had them come in to do an enrichment session with us, the supervisor leadership of our department last year. A lot of members of our department contributed to this book, and so now every supervisor in our police department are going through this book together as a team to just try to develop our emotional intelligence and our literacy, just like reading and writing. You have to practice at it to do it. It's the same thing with emotional maturity. We have to practice at it, and that's what we're trying to learn how to do better. But we brought in a gentleman, he's considered a financial cop. He was a Grand Prairie officer that was a self-made millionaire. Now he teaches cops around the country on how to do their finances and how to be better prepared when you start this profession for retirement, which is something which a lot of us wish we knew back then. But we brought him in, and so just a lot of different ways we're trying to make our officers' overall wellness better. So we have our mission statement, we have all these things that sound real good, but the way we measure how well and if we're successful in our job is through our 4 performance measures. So our 4 performance measures are crime rate, traffic safety, timely service, and quality of service. So number 1 is crime rate, and I don't want to take up a lot of time, and I don't want to insult your intelligence, but basically there's these crimes so not every crime is the same state to state. You can have a certain crime that's in Texas, so if you've ever heard of assault and battery, there is no battery in Texas. Battery is an offense that happens in other states, but we don't have that offense in Texas. It's included in the offense of assault here in Texas. So if you want to compare jurisdiction to jurisdiction throughout the country, we needed to have some commonality. So the FBI came and identified these major crimes right here that I listed and defined them. And so each year, agencies around the country will report their crimes based on the FBI's definition so that now we can compare apples to apples, and it tells you how many of those crimes per 1,000 population, daytime population, occur in your jurisdiction. So the end of year 2023, Westlake's was a great crime rate, 1.57, which is by far the lowest around the Metroplex. I would think, I haven't confirmed that, so I don't want to say for sure, but I think of only one town that may be close, but you should be very happy about the town you live in. It's tremendous, very, very safe. 28 Part 1 crimes, and I will tell you over 93% of those were property crimes. So if we could get folks, and you will always hear me say this every time I get in front of you, if we can just get our citizens to either take their valuables out of their cars, bring them inside, if they're going to leave them in their cars, at least hide them so they're not in plain view, and lock your cars. That would tremendously even make your crime rate better. But that's the biggest crime. We don't get a lot of violent crime. And when we do, usually it's domestic, and it's people we know. So Westlake is a great, safe place. These are the crime trends. As you can see, the larceny thefts are the biggest things that we have here in Westlake. And we're continuously trying to put that message out. So traffic safety is the next performance measure. This is just data that shouldn't be surprising. Unfortunately, as of this last Friday, we're continuing our trend. We did have a fatality crash on 114, and hopefully that's the last one for the year. Timely service. So this means every aspect of our job, we have to be intentional about being respectful of our citizens' time. But a lot of times people will gauge a police department by these specific facts that we provided here. Our dispatch center wants to answer the 911 calls in less than 10 seconds. We do that 99.5% of the time. You can see the different data there for NetCom. For patrol, from the time that a citizen calls 911 to the time officers are arriving at their house, our goal is less than 5 minutes, and we averaged 4 minutes and 12 seconds. I'll tell you, when I first came here in 2020, that goal for the priority 2 and 3 calls, which are not priority 1, there's no urgency, but a citizen called and wants a response, that goal is less than 15 minutes. And I kept seeing how well we keep beating that, so I'm going to keep lowering it. So last year we had it, the goal was less than 12 minutes, and we've already reduced the 2024 goal to less than 10 minutes. So we're going to continue to challenge ourselves to be responsive to our citizens.
Is the response time, is that Westlake and Keller combined?
Yes.
Okay.
So for quality of service, the latest survey for the town of Westlake was 2022. I know that we're planning to do another town survey. But I also wanted to remind you that we are implementing that Axon My Community survey that will be throughout the year. And so as we start compiling that data, future presentations that I bring to you, I'm hopefully to bring that kind of data to show you as well. And then finally, our organization and structure, you can't really see it. Hopefully you can see it on your pads. That's just kind of how our organization is broken down. This is how our staffing is broken down, and we do have one overhire position that's not listed there. But a total of so we have really a total of 98 staffing.
Are you fully staffed now? Or do you have any openings?
We have 4 openings.
4 openings.
If we can get them, but we have 4 that are just waiting to get through the process to offer them letters, then we'll be full on paper. But we have, I think we have 6 people in the academy. We have one in field training, and that's it. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So this is a breakdown of our demographics of our department, and this is the service population of Keller and Westlake combined. And so one thing I just want to highlight that is over the national average for police departments is the number of female sworn officers. I take pride in that. One thing that makes us as successful and makes us obtain those accreditations that I listed is our regional partnerships. None of the towns around here are big enough to be able to sustain themselves and provide the same quality of service that the larger jurisdictions can without these regional partnerships. And luckily, people that were in my position before me established them. They created these relationships. We have great relationships with each other. We work well together. And I just wanted to list all of the different regional partnerships that allow us to do and provide that quality of service to everyone. Just the crash on Friday night, we had crash team members from all these different cities come out in the middle of the night to work us. Yeah. And then finally, at the beginning of the year, one thing we did provide to you, and this is required, so we have a third-party entity that does all of our racial profiling research, and so quarterly we will provide them sample data that they will audit us throughout the year to make sure that there's no triggers or concerns in the data that we need to put our attention to, and then they will provide an end-of-year annual report to us for racial profiling. So it meets the requirements required by law, but it provides all the laws. It explains kind of how we got to where we are, and it provides all the data to the citizens, and that was provided earlier in this year. And I know that was a lot of information, but please, I encourage you, if you have questions, if you want to know more about any part of it, or if you want, maybe wait till the renovation's done. I'll let you tour the place. Doesn't look that great right now.
You offered a couple of years ago. We never took you up on. I do want to come see you.
Please,
I saw
I'd
Chief
love it.
Ard last week or a couple of weeks ago. I had lunch with him, but when's appropriate, let me know, and I'll get a couple of council members to come see y'all. But
That'd be great.
any questions for Chief Forrest? We really appreciate all you do for us, and your updates are fabulous. Thank
Roger
you.
that. Thank you all.
You're awesome. Thanks.
Hey. Chief Ard, how are you?
Good evening. I'm doing well. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you tonight. I'm a little shorter than him, so I'll bring it down just a little bit. Thank you again for this opportunity to give you an introduction to our department, and it's going to be an introduction and also kind of discuss a little bit of the needs and conditions in our department as well. So first, I'd like to discuss, if I can get the slide moving. There we go. About who we are. We are a values-focused and intellectually driven organization, and really what that means is that we put our character traits first, and character traits such as compassion, dedication, integrity, being disciplined. We use that to build a leader of character culture so that we can build relationships with others, because we know that interpersonal ability is what's going to improve our service delivery to those that we serve and our stakeholders. With that, we also have high expectations for hiring, onboarding, and promotion standards. We use those character traits in all of those facets to find humble, hungry, and smart people. Smart both in terms of intelligence, but also EQ. So we want to have folks that understand how to work well with others. Because we believe this community is an education-based community, a learning community, we've embraced that growth mindset to learn, and we've established the ability to continue to grow as best as we can. And we have 75% of our staff with bachelor's degrees, which is a very big deal in the fire service. And then all administration staff have a master's degree. We want to seek to be better. To be better, we have to measure what we're doing so that we know that we're improving. So we've established performance measures in operations, training, and risk reduction. Our staff is made up of 19 total staff members, including a Westlake Academy firefighter paramedic serving in the nurse's office. Minimum staffing each day is really limited to 2 people on that ambulance and 2 people on that engine each and every day. We've separated our department into 4 main divisions. It includes administration, operations, risk reduction, and emergency management. I won't read all those to you, but a lot of categories there. We have a large scope of services that we're serving anymore. We're not just firefighters, not just a fire department. That's a legacy term we've had for over 100 years. In today's time, we're a all-hazard response team. What that means is we're covering lots of different services to include structural firefighting, social services, active shooter events, fire investigation, technical response, hazardous material responses, special events, emergency management, and more. I wanted to point out that our department have done the best that we can to raise standards. What we've done is put in front of you basically the requirements to be a firefighter, paramedic, a driver, and a captain. The bolded portions are the things that are over and above what most cities require. So we're requiring what most of our neighbors require, but we're also adding more value to each position because we believe that scope of services to deliver those services is going to require a great deal of credentialing, experience, and skills. So at the firefighter level, you got hazardous material technician. That's an additional certification that they'll have to have. For a driver engineer, you've got that list plus 60 hours of regional accredited college. At the captain level, we believe we're likely, I can't confirm it, but we might be the only department in the entire region that require a bachelor's degree for a company officer. That's a captain level. In addition to that, the other bolded portions are extra as well. I don't want to mislead you in that the fire officer, it's common to see a fire officer 2, but not a 3. You'll see an instructor 2, but not a 3. We're raising the bar higher for our folks because we believe that this town deserves that. So they're also an incident commander and also a licensed paramedic. In addition to those things, our folks are also pursuing 36 hours of continuing education and 4 hours for a medical director. In addition to those things, the Texas Commission on Fire Protection, which is the regulatory agency that regulates all fire service in Texas, you'll have to have these minimum hour requirements. I won't read those all to you, but it actually adds up to a great deal of work every year. We wanted to share with you that we have some partnerships. We have many more than I'm listing on this screen. Most notably, we have Westlake Academy by having that firefighter paramedic serve in the nursing role there. But we also serve and offer CPR training to all the high school students each and every year. And we also are providing them Stop the Bleed training too. We recently formed Westlake Area Network Group. That's a new group where we're going to meet with our corporate stakeholders, both Chief Fortune and I, to discuss emergency education, but also our expectations about how they can help us. We're wanting to build relationships with those folks so that we can have that relationship before a crisis occurs. Because we know if we can get that ahead of time, it'll be much easier when a crisis does happen. Additionally, we also have Northeast Fire Department Association. I'm going to glaze over that quickly, but that's a really large organization that we're a part of that includes 15 cities now. We just added DFW Airport. So in that association, there's 40 fire stations within that group that we combine many different specialized services. We also have a member on the regional SWAT team, NetCom, and then which NetCom is our 911 provider, and then NetCo is the infrastructure to the radio system. We also partner with Tarrant County Arson Task Force for those related activities. We are also providing, in addition to the scope of services that I talked about what we did earlier, is initiatives, offer CPR and Stop the Bleed training. We offer car seat inspections and installations, offer home safety inspections, fire extinguisher training and demonstrations. This year we reinstituted the annual open house, and we enjoyed doing that, and we're doing station tours every week. We want to know how we're doing in terms of the community. Earlier this year, we established the manual version of what Chief Fortune was speaking about, but we created a little business card that has a QR code on the back, and what it does is have 5 survey questions, and we don't hand them to everybody either, but for many circumstances, we can get a little bit of feedback about how we're doing. Are we doing better? Are we professional? Are we courteous? Are we meeting their expectations? Some of the text, there's a text field in the bottom for them to add value and basically add what they want to say, and we put a couple of those things up on the slide. We're very caring and attentive. They represent the best of our community. We're really proud of that. We're really proud that they make these comments for us, that they were so great at helping me with my car seat. Such nice men. Glad we have them. And last, I wish I never have to need your services, but if I ever do, you have our complete trust and respect. That's kind of an overview of our department. I kind of went kind of fast because I know there's a lot to discuss tonight, but what I wanted to mention to you as I go into the next portion of the slides is some of our threats and conditions facing our department. We know that these things didn't happen overnight and they're going to take some time to fix, but I need to share them with you so that you can understand what we're facing. Some of those threats is having a non-competitive compensation system, and it's causing attrition. And we have some community growth challenges and insufficient staffing, and we've been experiencing insufficient staffing for a long time. This isn't a new issue, but it's becoming a larger issue as this town is growing. And then unfunded capital equipment, and I'll have some slides that address each of these as we get to them. The compensation discussion is really the fire department are drastically below market, and I'm going to try and give you a few slides that just kind of illustrate that. What we think we need is annual salary market analysis. It needs to happen every year so that we don't get so far behind. We need a comprehensive pay policy that addresses how people move from one, either if it's not a step program and it's a range, how do we maneuver through that range? And last, we need a current adopted competitive pay plan. We have not seen that in quite some time.
Hey, Chief, let me just ask you, have we ever done a market analysis on salary?
We have. It's
Okay.
been done, but it's been, I couldn't tell you how many years it's been.
Okay, so
It's been a
not
while.
anything current. Okay, thank you.
Nothing that I think you've gotten to hear. This is an example. We had a firefighter leave our organization. We had 3 in the fall, or I'm sorry, not in the fall, but in the winter time. I'm going to share one of them with you. Firefighter paramedic left our organization in December. He left the Louisville Fire Department. Westlake paid him a salary of nearly $68,000. He was a 2-year firefighter in our organization. Louisville offered him a lateral pay of $90,458. The difference is over $22,500. Now, even if you look at that scale that's in front of you with the red bar there, even if he had gone to a step 1, they're providing him basically some credit for some previous experience he had before us, plus our experience, and put him at step 6, but he would still receive a sizable raise. I have an error on this slide to be clear that the firefighter paramedic current range for the firefighter paramedics in our organization is $64,000 to $78,000. What I'm trying to share in this issue is that not only is our scale lower, but it's more compressed. In our organization, it would take you 20 years to get that $14,000. You can go $20,000 in 7 years in Louisville. That's pretty significant. This next slide is a sample comparison. This data is right off websites. It's current data. In yellow on the Westlake side, you can see that if you look at a firefighter step 1 pay at $64,000, the comparative pay for a step 1 firefighter at Flower Mound, Louisville, Southlake, the average pay was nearly $78,000. That's a difference of $14,600. That's a significant number. And we're having, just as a reminder, we're having higher standards for our folks too. If you look at what the disparity grows larger as you move to a firefighter paramedic at step 5, which we don't have steps in our organization, we have a range, but a 5-year firefighter paramedic in our organization will make $70,179. 5-year or 5-step person in these other organizations will get on average pay of $88,900. That's almost $19,000 off. The disparity grows larger the longer the tenure is. And I won't read in every one of those, but you can see how it's increasing in number and volume there. Many cities, specifically to public safety, offer many incentive pays. I'm not necessarily advocating for incentive pays. What I'm trying to share with you is that they exist. Many of these incentive pays, such as longevity pay, certification pay, education-based pay, out-of-class pay, standby, tuition reimbursement, nearly all of those incentives are offered in nearly every city. They're not offered here. That value adds up to a $5,000 to $6,000 range, depending on what position you're in. That's on top of the dollars that were on this slide. So $6,000 on top of that. We're behind. And then some cities are offering paramedic pay, assignment pay, if you're a field training officer, if you're riding that ambulance. Just trying to share that the compensation is behind. what it's causing is attrition in our department. We know that attrition is disruptive. It creates hardship on those that are actually trying to fill those empty spots through overtimes, and then it creates a lot of time and energy for us to replace them. We also lose a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience that's really valuable to a small organization. It's very costly. There's the soft costs and those hard costs that we're experiencing, and we're going to be paying the money. It would be best to consider that in compensation.
Chief, what's your total staff again?
19 people.
19, okay.
So 15 people in operations. So when I speak to what I'm about to share with you right now, the facts on the right side of this, 12 personnel replaced in 4.5 years, that's operations personnel. And that's basically the firefighter level that are revolving. Because in public safety, I might add that in public safety, both police and fire in general, if you're at a higher level rank, those aren't often offered. You have to start over when you go to another jurisdiction. If you're and I'll speak more to the fire side because I'm a lot more familiar with that, but if you're a firefighter in this organization, or correction, not a firefighter, but a driver engineer, they don't have driver engineer spots open at Southlake or Flower Mound. You have to start at the bottom. They recently started allowing some of that lateral pay, which I mentioned Louisville offered, but few organizations in public safety do that, especially at a higher level. So we've been able to retain some of our drivers and our officers, but I would say that we're likely keeping them because they just don't exist elsewhere. So further, we have 10 hiring processes completed. They've taken 4 months apiece. We listed some of the costs associated with placing a firefighter paramedic and the costs associated with a firefighter EMT. That disparity is much larger on EMT because we have to send them to school for paramedic school, and that's 7 to 8 months of full time away at paramedic school. So that's that cost associated plus everything else.
And then, Chief, let me ask you this. When we pay for their education, is there a requirement they have to be with us a certain amount of time?
We have not instituted that here, and I've heard of some agencies doing that, but I don't know about the success rate.
I have no idea in the fire department. I know it's very prevalent in the corporate world, but I have no idea on the fire.
I think some are doing that, but I couldn't speak to the legal part of that. I know it's a potential option. We're also facing community growth. Right now, there's permitted $730 million worth of growth in this community, which is astounding, especially for a 7-square-mile community with over 2.6 million square feet. That's over and above what we already have. Complicated building system features with multiple neighborhoods coming in online right now, and then a lot of that construction specific to some of it is really high hazard, and it's high hazard because it's high occupancy. High occupancy is because there's so many folks in those buildings, it requires it to have a different hazard rating. How does it impact the fire department? Risk reduction. Our fire marshal's office, our one fire marshal is doing many plan reviews, fire inspection systems testing, consultations with engineers and others. Operation, it's increasing density, call volume, population. We've also recognized that traffic increases too. So we're seeing all these campuses are having initiatives at filling them back up. And that filling back up is creating a lot more traffic. That traffic flow is creating more incidents. So that's some of that. In addition to that is emergency management. We're also experiencing, I'm your emergency management coordinator, and that's a challenge to deal with the population growth in the town from a daytime perspective. We know that the town is small from a residential standpoint, but the daytime population is significant, and it's only growing. We've had 3 independent services evaluate us or examine us over the last 11 years, specifically Mike Peach for ISO 2 times in that time period. So ISO evaluation, a comprehensive plan done by the town, and then the last on another slide will be a community risk analysis and standard of cover. Mike Peach identified that Westlake should have in service 2 engine companies, 1 ladder truck company deployed from 2 fire stations for the lowest ISO rating. Note, company implies that both apparatus and staff are together to make a company. And I just wanted to point out that in both of those evaluations, our largest deficiency was a result of insufficient engine company staffing and no ladder truck. The comprehensive planning update that was done in 2015 was done through Mesa Planning. It was a third-party organization that did a large plan review in terms of what's the mobility look like in this town, what's the future growth look like, what is our future population going to look like. It also spoke to the public safety standpoint from a fire as in terms of how many folks are we going to have. So it also listed that. We should have more firefighters, and then that we should also have 2 fire stations, one at Dove and Davis, but also at Roanoke Road on the west side of town. The third, community risk assessment, that was created. That's a community risk assessment basically is this document that says what are your risks in town, and then how do you manage those risks, and do you have the appropriate resources, adequate resources to do that. And it recommended in 2020 that we need at least 4 personnel in that engine every day. It also said that we're more efficient if we have more folks on that fire truck. It recommended in 2020 we have a fire inspector, a shift commander, training chief, and a ladder truck with 4 personnel. It recognized there was future needs as well. It didn't call it in future. It talked about as the town develops to the west that we would need to consider a second fire station site and then staffing it.
Chief, there's ratios for having a second site. How does that work? I mean, there's a formula?
Well, there's different factors from call volume or the incidence of double calls, or there's lots of different metrics to evaluate. When is the tipping point in terms of when are we going to the west side more often than perhaps this east side, or it's adding your call volume is going up, your increased time to serve that area becomes an issue. So there's multiple factors from which to look at, but it depends.
And that's one thing
it's dynamic.
We're going to have to get real crisp on as we have these further conversations,
Yes.
make sure we understand that. And then I know our challenge is very unique with our daytime and nighttime population, which we need to make sure everybody understands.
We're experiencing more, and I can't give you metrics today, but we're definitely experiencing more movement to the northwest. So as we see Schwab developing and filling up, and then also the traffic. So we're getting a lot more traffic along 114, 170. So those are increasing issues. But we know that our density is on the east side of town. We're in the right spot right now. So with that, as we consider a second station and we talk about economic development, and we're having those discussions with leaders for development that need to consider that second site. There's lots of different organizations that speak to what our staffing needs should be in terms of industry best practices. National Fire Protection Association is one of the most notable. There's lots of information they share with you, but I was just trying to point out that they say it over and over again in different ways, but the first arriving company should have 4 people on it. We should have a fire inspector for the workload that we have with $730 million of new construction going on. The National Institute of Standards and Technology, which is a science-based organization that does all the evaluations on fire service, is saying that we know that we'll be more effective if we have more folks. Just kind of clear in that. I put on the OSHA statement that if you have 2 folks in a hazard environment, you need 2 folks that are outside that hazard environment so you can effect a rescue. It's hard for us to accomplish that sometimes, especially if the ambulance is busy, then I have the 2 people in the fire truck. We can't comply with that rule. That would be a problem for us. I'm going to try and give a few examples of some staffing challenges we have. So a structure fire, these are common assignments on a structure fire. So incident commander, water supply, fire support. We know that we've got 2 folks on the engine, 2 on the ambulance. If they're getting deployed at the same time, I have 4 people. If they're not getting deployed at the same time, we have 2. And that arrival of 2 resources is insufficient. So the availability is an issue of resources. A lot of times these events happen in a storm. It's literally, there's lots of activity going on. Many of the other fire stations in the area are busy. The availability of those coming to help you are reduced. And that's a challenge because we're all experiencing high demand.
Chief Ard, do you have any idea what the average or maybe even your expected response time is from our neighboring communities?
We know that we get a mutual aid response in roughly 8 to 12 minutes for the first units. The other units are all staggered, and they're further out. something I failed to mention earlier is that in a fire, not only a fire event, but many emergency events, that first 15 minutes is critical to provide the right amount, or correction, the adequate amount of trained people to manage that incident. And if we have inadequate amounts, we get behind what we call a curve, or a fire growth curve. It's growing exponentially, and we're not prepared to manage that. That becomes a real challenge. So it's that first few minutes of any incident, whether it's an EMS incident, which I'll speak to, or a fire, those become really challenging if you don't get an adequate number quickly. A wreck, many organizations in our area deploy 2 fire apparatus and an ambulance, sometimes a fire chief. In our organization, we can deploy 1 fire truck and 1 ambulance with fewer personnel. We tried to list some of these critical tasks because these are tasks that need to be accomplished on every scene. Just the other night that Chief Fortune's speaking out, what do we miss when we only have fewer folks? We will likely have to cut some corners somewhere, and it happens every time because there's just fewer. We're smart. We know what we're doing. We know how to do it. But trying to manage every one of these critical tasks simultaneously becomes a challenge. So is it scene safety? Is it dealing with patient extrication? Is it going to be incident command? What corner do we have to slight? You're having a medical emergency, a CPR. Our own medical control suggests that we should have optimally 6 people. We have 4. They're good. They're really good. They're credentialed at it. Our medical control makes sure of it, but it's still fewer folks. They're going to manage airway compressions, drugs, cardiac monitoring, lead medic, or correction, but we can get 4 of those tasks done, but what ones do we miss? Further, as we try to move that patient, another challenge is because we have fewer folks, meaning when we need to take care of that patient to get them transported to the hospital, means we're going to take people off that engine, 1 or both, and put them on the ambulance so we can serve that patient to the best of our ability. But what happens is now the engine's out of service, left on the side of the road, where I'll go pick it up with somebody else. But then that means that you have no fire truck in service in the town. And for an extended period of time, and this has happened many times over the years. And I know this is new to you, and you're first to hear this, but I just thought it best that you hear this information.
Actually, I just want to ask a quick question. Don't read into it. I just,
Sure.
Coming from a position of just naivety, when you talk about, staffing of the engines or vehicles, I mean, I can
Yes.
understand what you're saying. Look, that becomes a danger to the crews we're sending out to accidents or responses. When you're talking about competitive pay, I mean, that's an easy analysis, and that's, an economic agenda item. But when you talk about lacking something like a ladder truck, and again, this is where I'm going to be very sensitive when I ask this question. When you have responding neighboring towns that do respond, and you looked at some of our taller buildings being maybe in the northwest side of town or other areas, talk to us about, the mission critical component of having a ladder truck in this town versus on, being the little brother who's relying on big brother to always come to the rescue. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
It's interesting that we probably should be the big brother. We have 24 buildings, 4 or more stories in height, and that's more than probably most cities combined in North Tarrant County, with the exception of Grapevine. We probably should be the big brother, and we're not. We're leaning on folks that have the ladder trucks or the aerial apparatus that, not saying they don't need them, but they have fewer of those types of buildings, those higher hazard buildings. And this community doesn't. I would be speculating a little bit. We're probably the only community in the entire area that does not have one. Because a ladder truck has a different function. It's not only just an aerial apparatus for effective rescue, but it carries a different complement of tools. So it has a different scope and purpose. And when you combine that scope and purpose of a ladder truck with an engine, you create a really powerful team. Without that team, it makes it really challenging to do the things we need to do. So I'm hoping I'm leading you, but maybe.
Good question.
No, it's definitely helpful. Later on the agenda, we're talking about a strategic plan for the town. That's something similar to this we've not done in a long while. And there's various components to it, looking at some of the infrastructure needs, looking at some of the future growth potential of the town, looking at some of the economic development that can help balance those infrastructure needs as we go forward. And so the timeliness of this discussion is quite good. We have several proposals out, and obviously, council's going to discuss it this evening and maybe give direction on it. But Wade, we'll talk about it when we get to that point. But would a strategic plan of this nature be granular enough to address and consider the fire station needs? Or some of these reports that you reference, are those really groups that specialize specifically on fire station infrastructure and that sort of thing?
It's both and. So a strategic plan that's done at the correct level will be granular enough to hit every single department that we have. So we will look at the fire department. We will look at public works. We will look at communication and understand their mission and roles and ensure that whatever future we desire, this council desires for Westlake, that we're staffing that appropriately, spending the right dollars, and have the right technology, each of those areas in order to get that done. And that plan, it just gives us a roadmap. Okay, we need to get there in 5 years. We need to get there in 10 years. What kind of cost is that going to take for us to do that? How do we eat the elephant one bite at a time, right? We've got to take that first bite. So we got to identify the elephant, which is what the fire chief is doing this morning or this evening. And now we need to identify what's the first bite. That's in the strategic.
Yeah, and I
Well
think
said.
your input throughout that process will be hugely beneficial to all of us because, obviously there will be a wish list of all the things that would make the fire station run optimally. But then there will be things that you might say, look, the pay is critical right now. Getting a new engine is critical, getting additional staffing, but we could probably delay the ladder truck, although it's not ideal. Second fire station, again, maybe we can rely on neighboring town. That's where your ability to help us balance the economic component to ultimately get you where you want to be. But just given the realities, it's probably just going to be a phased approach, like you said.
Yeah.
I understand that. I think the town is maturing, and it's going to take some time to tackle all these needs, and I'm about to discuss those. But I think we understand that, but there's a few critical ones I'm about to discuss that's just reiterate.
And well said, by the way. And just to let you know, I went and had lunch with the chief and some of his staff a couple weeks ago, got the tour. I would highly recommend you guys do that to really kind of understand what's going on. But we talked about this. I do personally think we've just continually kicked the can down the road on the fire department. And as I told the chief, we can't do everything at once, but we need to get the prioritization. I think the strategic plan is huge. Just have honest adult conversations, what we can do and what we can't do or when we can do it.
Yes,
and
sir.
that's my commitment to you right now, is
Thank
that
you.
we will do that. We will be honest and
Thank you.
candid on where we are.
Yes, and I think as a council, we all want to do the best we can to support your department. Part of our workshops later this summer, I hope that we can get the council up to date on the prior efforts the last 4 years or so about combining the Keller and Westlake fire departments and finding out how that all shook out and understanding the scenarios there. Wade, if you can help us get caught up on that.
Sure, there was a complete report that was written over that entire process, so we can send that back out to council. And
Yeah.
you guys can
As
have a
part of the
review that.
conversation, so we see all
Absolutely.
options.
Sure.
Excellent.
I thought I would mention one of the last items that was a threat to us is unfunded capital equipment and vehicle replacement. We have plans for these items. We know they have predictable lifespans. We know when they need to be replaced. It's just having the funds to do that. In terms of equipment, we've often tried to manage that through our operational budget. So I'll just kind of try and get to the end, is that critically, we just want to try and address these few things. Implement a competitive pay plan, try and get some more firefighters, and replace an engine. There's other needs that I've already discussed with you. Just in closing, I just want to let you know that we strive to be the best we can be. We deliver a broad range of services. We are highly skilled and efficient at what we do, but we lack the resources to effectively and safely deliver these emergency services. And the industry experts are supporting it. So thank you for listening to me.
Chief, thank you. A couple of things. One, when I drove up for lunch the other day, I had a neighbor that was delivering cupcakes because y'all helped save them from an elevator issue or something. But,
Oh, yes.
But
Yes.
from that, you have kind of a brag board of notes that residents send you, I think is really nice, and you should probably, promote it a little more, but it's really nice, kind of like Chief Fortune said, but those were really nice notes, and I really do appreciate you taking the time. The other question I have, and for Chief Fortune as well, do we have, and Wade, do we have an issue, this horrific crash this weekend, do we have an issue with TxDOT on maybe how that was put together? Because I go down there a lot. It seems like it's just waiting for an accident.
Want to respond to that?
It's still pretty early in the investigation. I mean,
Okay.
Go down.
I know the feeling, John.
Here we go.
Now, I really don't have a lot of data for that. I just know she crossed over lanes of traffic and went head on. I don't know if that was a TxDOT problem or a distraction, sleeping, or intoxication problem. We don't have results back from any time of blood work, so I don't really have a lot to be able.
Well,
to
if you'd
provide.
look that new, I mean, I know when they opened that up, there was a crash or two months ago, right? So just please help us look out if there's an issue there that. I think this crash, you're right, it's a completely different thing, but I've known some other crashes there.
We have made several requests of TxDOT for some restriping on off ramps. We're not having a lot of success there, so we're going to ramp up our ask.
Okay, we know people, right? Okay, there you go. Thank you. Any questions for Chief Harden? Chief, thank you very much. Thanks for all you do. You guys want to take 10 minutes real quick?
Sure.
Then
Thank you, Chief Harden. You did well.
let's take 10 minutes. We'll start back at 6:30 and then wrap up the rest of the agenda. Let's go ahead and get started. So we're on agenda item H, Boards and Commission. Coming out of executive session, we approved H.1 for Planning, Zoning, and Texas Student Housing. H.2, appoint Planning and Zoning Commissioner, Chair and Vice Chair. The mayor elects these. We have talked to Adam Coffey, will continue his role as chairman, and Terry Wilkinson is vice chairman. Do we need a motion on that, or is that just a...
That's your appointment,
That's my
Mayor.
appointment. That is done. Okay, let's go to letter I, consent agenda. Is there any, just for everybody, all these items listed below are considered routine by the Town Council and our Board of Trustees and will be enacted with one motion. If there's any item council wishes to be removed from the consent agenda or individual consideration.
Yeah, Mayor, could we just pull I-8? I just want to make a very brief
No, that's perfect.
comment
Thank you,
on
David. I'd like to get approval on, we'll pull I-8 out. Can I get approval on the rest of the consent agenda? A motion to
motion.
approve?
And second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Then agenda passes. Let's talk about I.8. Is that Carolyn?
I can begin the conversation while they're on their
Okay.
way up, Mayor. I-8, that food contract catering service is actually a contract where we receive a revenue from a food contractor. So our contractor that provides the meals, those meals are charged directly to the students and paid directly to the vendor. What this contract is for is it actually pays the school for the use of their kitchen during that time period. I will hand that over to the people that really know what's going on.
So I did a little bit of a presentation here just to kind of touch the high points, and then you can feel free to ask any questions. So this is a 2-year contract from beginning August 2024 and goes through 2026. So as Wade had mentioned, all of the student accounts and faculty, because it also includes them as well, are managed by Viandas. And so they pay him directly. They work with him if there's any disputes. Everything works through them. Also, another thing I wanted you to be aware of is that Walter, the contractor, he maintains all of his state and local licensing as required by, the health department. Viandas is also the only sole user of the kitchen and equipment facilities, and that's required by the health department. Specific changes for the contract were in the student hot plate lunches, going up to $7, and then in 2026 it'll go up to $7, and that's per Walter. Information that I received from him. Likewise, the rental fee that Walter will provide to the academy for using the equipment and the kitchen will remain at $81.68 for fiscal year 25, but then will increase 3%. And that is direct local revenue that comes directly to the school. And that's all the information I have. So if you have any direct questions.
Yeah, so I think my only comment on this, and thanks for the recap, and Wade, I understand that this obviously does generate revenue to the town. So I think, there have been suggestions made that the cost of food has been going up quite quickly. It's quite high. Just, out of curiosity, I went onto Carol's website, and it looks like lunches for students is anywhere from $240 to $270, and for staff it's $460. And please verify, because I don't want to pretend I'm an expert. Keller is very similar. It's $295 for a student, and it's $450 for an adult. And we're 2.5 to 3 times that price. And I think that's what people have been saying. And I look, just for example, like milk, we're being charged $1.25 per child, and I think in Carroll it's only 60 cents. And I know you've got a lot going on, and I didn't want to force this as something you should research before committing, but this is a 2-year contract. I know we have a 120-day release for no cause, which is helpful. But at just some point, I just think it may be worth kind of putting some time into seeing if and maybe there's a reason why this is better. It's worth the premium. I'm not suggesting it's not good. I'm just saying it's something we should at least think about But like I said, I know you have a lot going on, so.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We did discuss this a little bit last week. We looked into the contract, and given the 120-day release, we felt like maybe that would, if we renew, we still have time later to evaluate whether or not there would be a cause or reason to change.
I have to think, David, it's a good question, but I got to think there's some really huge economies of scale issues between those two schools for what they're serving and what we're servicing, which would hopefully help price, but let's look at it.
Yeah, I think there's economy scale for sure, but I also think there's differences in quality. At the public schools, the food there is very different than what Vianda serves. And I know that kids can be very difficult customers. And, my son just graduated a year ago, but he ate a lot of Vianda's foods. And I know that during COVID and such, he had a lot of difficulty staying afloat. So I do appreciate him. I appreciate the idea of maybe getting bids and comparisons, but I do think that the pricing, as much as we want to pay attention to that, we should also pay attention and balance it with the quality of the food that he provides, and probably just take a look with that periodically.
Yeah, and that's kind of exactly what my point is. And the fact that this is a 2-year contract, I just don't want it to not come back, because it may just be 2 more years and then we're all busy again and we don't choose to look at it. So I just wanted to make sure we're just kind of thinking about it.
Since this contract does not end until July, do you want to maybe wait and I can get Walter in here and maybe he can answer your questions better?
Honestly, I think there's probably enough other things to worry about and to do that I'd go ahead and just do this. I've just asked that if there's a chance to evaluate at some point, it's just worth doing it.
Yeah, I think we can ask questions. I think those are good questions. Okay, thank you. Okay, can I get a motion to approve I.8?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Good conversation. Okay, item J, public hearing. Casey? Been waiting patiently.
Because y'all haven't heard from me enough the last couple of meetings.
I always love hearing from you.
All right. The first thing I do want to bring your attention to, on the dais, you'll have corrected copies of the Exhibit A, which is the supplementary budget information with the line details. We had some technical glitches on Friday when the agenda had to go out, and so what was attached was incorrect. Specifically, I want to point to lines 16 through 19, those state funds. What's in front of you is the corrected amounts that you have seen the last couple of meetings for those state contributions. The information that went out in the packet that's on page 223 and 321 has prior year information in those lines, which looks like we had a shortfall of $444,000, which is not the case. All right, and then going forward, I'll just very quickly run through the same information that we've been talking about and give you the update on what it is that we will be asking you to consider this evening. So for next fiscal year, we are looking at a budget of $11,510,063. Based on our conversation at the last meeting, the only changes to revenues are the town subsidy amount is going up. It had been a placeholder number at $1.25 million. After we incorporated the SLAs that were discussed, this becomes a plug number, and it's actually going up about $30,000 over the prior year to $1,496,000 and almost $500. But on the revenues, that is the only number that has changed from what's been presented previously. We got a request to show more of a walk-forward look at things. So breaking it down by those major categories, you can just see which ones went up and which ones went down. This is the same information that says previous year we adopted a budget of $11.1 million. We are currently considering a budget of $11.5 million for fiscal year 25. Whenever we look at the expenditures by object, The amounts here have all changed ever so slightly. That is due to those SLAs. So recall that we went ahead and folded in 1.75 FTEs for the Director of Innovation and Development, and then a split-funded building technician position. Additionally, within the contracted services, supplies and materials, and other operating costs, there were slight tweaks to those based on those SLAs, mostly the IB curriculum items that had been presented.
I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but I think we covered everything on the SLAs last meeting except for the Director of Innovation and Development. Is Dr. Ritchie, or can someone just maybe speak to that for a few minutes?
I'll let Dr. Ritchie.
Yes, so we can speak to that. There were several things that came out during the interview process about coherency and cohesiveness across the different divisions at the school. There were some other concerns that we feel like could be addressed if we had a targeted approach to that. And it's more on the ground type stuff versus visionary type stuff, which would free my role up to kind of work with the town and on a more global level than on a more granular level. So that is something that we're still discussing, fleshing out. We had some ideas actually today that kind of came to light that may make this a little bit easier, but it's definitely something that we're still discussing.
Yeah. And David, I think I brought this up last meeting that there's this position coming up. I'm fully supportive. I want Dr. Ritchie to have every opportunity to come in and get what she needs to get done. The other thing I want to remind, just the way things work, we have 2 subdivisions coming in, and the way the funds flow, each one of those subdivisions pays into the school fund, and we look at those funds. We do have money coming in from these subdivisions, just the 2 that we've approved since I've been elected. So I feel good financially about where the school is.
I do want to mention on that note, those development fees that come into the town for Westlake Academy reside in a special revenue fund on the town budget for more capital items.
And David, you probably know that, but I want to make sure that's just really transparent going forward as all this development is starting to happen, that we do have funds coming in specifically for the school.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I know, as I said, I just want to make sure we kind of understood the position, and obviously it's, something you've been thinking through. So I'm not questioning the validity. It's just making sure that, as things come up, things you need, that you just let council know so they can be supportive and help you wherever they can. One of the things that, got dropped from the budget or maybe just deferred is, for example, a full-time special education position. Is that something you may revisit during the year? Is it just to give more time to assess the needs of?
So my understanding, and we may not be talking about the same position. My understanding is that position is in the works right now. The coordinator, the special ed coordinator position. Is that the one we're referring to?
So there was a special education position that was added in the current year budget, and then there was an addition asked for the next fiscal year budget. We paused the one for the next fiscal year right now, pending a review and enrollment information.
But the coordinator position, which was the stipend position for the current employee, that is, that's in place. Is that correct?
So we already have an employee that does have the special education coordinator stipend, and the stipend is on the compensation schedule that will be voted on tonight as well.
Does that help?
Yeah, no, it definitely helps. Like I said, I'm not questioning.
No, I appreciate the questions. I just want to make sure you're.
I guess my point is this: if once you get settled and you do feel there is a need for, I don't know who put forward the request for this role. I assume some staff member said, "Hey, this would be something we think we could use." We just want you to know you can always bring this back, and if there is additional positions, don't ever feel like the budget is set in stone and it cannot be amended. I know I said this last time, and I'll just say it one more time. Last year, we did approve 6 paraprofessionals. I don't know if this was brought to your attention. Only 5 were actually placed. Okay. There is one that is in the budget but just never got fulfilled. I just wanted you to be aware of it. So
thank you. I think we're working on filling that. We've got some resumes in, and Carolyn's going to be sorting through those. And we have a request to move an algebra position that's a 0.5 to a 1.0, and so we're working on that too. There's still some things during that amendment process that we expect we'll go through.
Absolutely. Well said, David. And I couldn't agree more. That's exactly what I want you to do, is look at areas and just come back and let us know.
Thank
what
you.
we're
I
here
appreciate that a lot. Thank you.
All right.
Sorry.
No, you're good. This is just a different view of that same information that we just very quickly went over. We are saying prior year was a 1.1 budget that was adopted. Through those different categories, we're now asking for approval of 11.5 million for next year.
Okay.
And with that, I'll let y'all open the public hearing.
Any questions for Case before I open the public hearing? I'd like to open a public hearing to receive input regarding the Westlake Academy fiscal year 2024-25 school budget. Anyone wish to speak? I will close the public meeting. Okay. Let's move on to regular agenda items. The first one is K1, consider and act and approve resolution WA 24-18 adopting the proposed budget and fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025, including committed and assigned fund balances. Casey.
Do we have any more questions on the $11.5 million?
This seems terribly inefficient, but
We can thank the Texas State Legislature.
I'm learning. I'm learning. Any questions on the budget? Can I get a motion to approve agenda item K1?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
And I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. K2, consider and act to approve WA Resolution 2419 and the Board of Trustees of Westlake Academy approving the amended operating budget for fiscal year June 30th, 2024. Casey.
And so this is the final budget amendment for the current fiscal year. Historically, what we have done is once we adopt a budget, we wait until we get into it for a few months. We start evaluating those different needs. Then we come back at the end of the year with what we consider a formal amendment where we are legally changing the budgetary lines that were adopted in line with TEA's requirements to be within 10% of the actual spend. So this is very administrative in nature, but not everybody has participated in this.
What happens if we're over 10%?
It affects our first rating. We get dinged.
So they hold us accountable to be good at budgeting.
Yes, because they don't want us to tie up resources if we don't need them.
Okay.
On the flip side, they also don't want us to blow past our resources that we don't have. And so what you'll see in your packet is the amended budget. If you've got your same little printout in front of you, it's going to be that yellow column in the middle.
And that's synonymous for actual for the most part.
It will be very close.
Okay.
We still have a couple of weeks to go and some cleanup, but
My
yes, sir.
vernacular, actually what happened. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Any questions? Can I get a motion to approve K.2?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. K.3, consider approving Westlake WA Resolution 24-21 adopting the employee compensation plan for the 2024-2025 fiscal year and take appropriate action. Hi, Sandy.
Evening.
That's quick.
Yes. Mayor, Board, the salary schedule that was presented this evening remains unchanged from the 23-24 salary schedule that we have in place right now. So based on the presentation, the review, and the required public hearing, staff recommends the approval of the schedule along with this resolution.
Any questions? We're cruising tonight. Okay, can I get a motion to approve K.3?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, David. Second?
Second.
Anna, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Sandy. K.4, consider an act to adopt ordinance 999 appointing Alan Wayland as alternate judge for the town of Westlake Municipal Court. Who's here to talk about this, or is this?
I can speak to it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mayor. So our alternate judge moved away. He's retired and moved out of town. Our current judge has suggested this gentleman to replace him.
Okay.
And he's got an excellent record.
On the background.
Yes, sir.
Did I read that, Stan, he worked with you at one point? Interesting. Cool.
Oh, excellent. Good. Can I get a motion to pass agenda item K4?
I'll make a motion. Sorry, someone else can.
Can I get a second?
Second.
We're all tired. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, this one will be good discussion. K.5, discuss and act to approve a strategic plan, scope of services, and authorize the town manager execute required documentation, begin scheduling strategic planning sessions as necessary with a chosen vendor. Mr. Carroll.
Mayor and Council, thank you. This is a great discussion that just kind of builds upon what we talked about with the fire chief, right? The need for us to be able to look at our build out strategically to understand where we want the city or the town of Westlake to be within the next 3 to 5 years, on top of where we really would like to see this thing, a vision for this thing in 10 to 20 years, is ultimately important for us to be able to put together work plans on an annual basis that pushes us towards those vision and pushes it toward that strategic, making possible the strategic plan that the council would like to have in place. The plans that you saw in your packet are a little different in scope, but all include strategic planning for both the academy and the town. So I want to be very clear about that we can't, because we're tied so closely together, it really makes no sense for us to do a lot of strategic planning on the academy with no way to fund it through the town. And then the same aspect on the town, we could do this in a box and not count what the academy needs from us to be successful, and that's not going to be successful for either one of us either. So it's going to be of the utmost importance for us to be able to really understand where we sit today, hear from our constituents and our stakeholders, and then as a group work through a process to ensure that we make Westlake everything that it possibly can be, and understand really the fiscal responsibility that we have and the fiscal sustainability modeling that we're going to need to ensure that that whatever strategic steps we want to make, we can actually afford to make those things. So if you look at the 3 different scopes of services that we have, there is the one that I am suggesting. Although it is the most expensive, it also is the most robust. It includes strategic planning for both the town and the academy. It includes fiscal sustainability planning for the town and the academy. And it includes our first step in taking a bite at fixing our comp plan as well. So there's a development plan included in that as well. So obviously, you get a vision for what we want the town to be. You put a strategic plan in place to start it in that motion. If you can't afford it, it doesn't matter, right? You have to go back and readjust that plan. So this will help us understand what we can and can't afford,
yeah.
And then even take a next step through the development process and help us understand what types of businesses, how much value do we need to bring in both in ad valorem tax and in sales tax in order to make these things happen.
Wade, what do you expect to get out today? Do you want direction on this? Are we trying to approve it? I mean, I would like to have personally, I want to make sure I clearly understand if the council votes to spend $229,000, whatever, that we clearly understand what we're getting out of that and the time frame. When I read through it, I didn't see a time frame unless I missed it.
Yes, sir. So the time frame, obviously, to get through all of that is a lengthy process, right?
Yeah.
So I doubt seriously that we'll be able to complete this in a 3 to 6 month time frame, but we will be able to get through the strategic planning piece early.
Yeah.
And that's what I've talked to all 3 of these groups and said of the utmost importance is us understanding our direction, and then we can start building work plans on that and understanding a 1 or 2 year budget for that. And then the fiscal responsibility is next, or that fiscal plan is next, with the comp plan being the final piece. It'll take about a year to complete the entire thing. Once you start looking at stakeholder feedback and those kind of aspects, take a couple of months to get all that information. And we're going to be able to help that process with the survey that we're going to be putting out as well, on top of them talking to, helping us rather talk to these people.
Any thoughts, comments, or
Yeah, globally, I think the prospect of doing something like this is quite exciting. I think it kind of marries together addressing some of these issues we've heard about tonight with some sort of sustainability plan. I think my only questions on this, Baker Tilly or whomever you go with, I know that's one you were recommending. I mean, these are fine firms. We've worked with them in the private sector. They're very impressive. But I also know that sometimes that until you sit down and work through the details, sometimes what you get is not always what you think you're going to get. And there's a lot of buzzwords that get used. And I think your mayor just making this point, it wasn't so clear certain aspects of this. It looks holistically great, but it's the detail that's really going to matter. And if we can get a granular input into the fire station, various school issues, I know once we get into it, there's going to be very specific things we'll want to see. You mentioned comp plan. I don't know if you meant like competitive salary analysis.
No, sir. It's,
okay.
It's development.
Right. Okay. So, but things like this, where we're looking at the global sustainability, I think that's where it's going to be really important to make sure we're all on the same page together as to what this is. I guess my only question is, if we were, to the mayor's point, vote on this, are we committing ourselves to the total funding of the report? I noticed, for example, they had proposed a kickoff meeting where, there would be a discussion of what the true scope would be, what the expectations would be. Is there a way to have that first piece before fully committing?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
If that's the direction, if you guys feel like that's the direction we'd like to go, I'd like to invite Baker Tilly here at our next meeting to have a work session prior to the council meeting.
Yeah, and David, I've done work with them. I can't remember why, but over the years, and they're an outstanding firm. And I guess I just asked all of council. It's kind of like the fire station, to be quite honest. I think I'm not being critical, but we've just kicked a lot of this stuff down the road, right? On the school, on the town. How are we going to sustain? We've been living off permit fees, quite successfully, I might add. We know we have a development behind that we got to get sales tax coming in, and for Casey, everything we get built in, it's just dollars to me. Like, we know something's coming in, it's $300,000 a year sales tax. I'm keeping that tally. We talked about in our executive meeting, we have these subdivisions coming in that's going right to the school fund. I want us all to understand that, but what I don't want to do is sitting here a year from now and we don't have a document that we go, this is what we're going to be when we grow up. This is what the school's going to be when it grows up. This is what the town's going to be. This is how we're going to sustain ourselves financially. And this is what we want to look like. So you're right, it looks simple on the presentation, but we've both probably been burned by that at the end of the day. So however we do that, and whatever you guys think, because I think we all ran for this to get this strategic plan in place. It's well overdue. What are the best next steps?
And just to chime in on that, I really want to underscore the economic sustainability and the strategic plan economically is huge to me, because over the last several years, I feel like that's the one piece we have not nailed down. It doesn't have to be perfectly granular, but we have to have an infrastructure on what we think is going to happen forecasting-wise and how we're going to pay for everything. And then as things evolve year to year, we can kind of ladder up to that strategy and fill in the details or evolve if we need to. That's what we need, I think. And so when we go into this meeting with perhaps Baker Tilly, I think just having them have that same expectation we have is huge. Because if they were to go out and talk to all of our stakeholders and such, their priorities in their immediate minds may not be exactly the same as ours. And I think the number one thing we have to come away with is that economic strategy and plan, so that we know that we're in a good place to support not just the residents, but also our school in the next 10 to 20 years. Where our flexibility is, where our options are, where we can expand or contract later on if we need to. Those are the kind of compass and roadmap understanding I hope we'll come away with after this workshop. Everything else is gravy on top, in my opinion.
Well said. And what I'm hearing from council is that we want them here, right? So why don't we invite Baker Tilly here at our next meeting? We can talk through exactly what that scope of service will look like and what the deliverables will be. Exactly. And then we can possibly pull the trigger during that meeting and get things started.
And one other thing I was thinking about was the Baker Tilly. I mean, initially when I was looking at the bid, I thought, wow, that's huge. But they are both school in town for strategic planning and development planning. So that's understandable. They did reserve a full day workshop for the town side and another full day for the school side. That may be reasonable, but I wanted to just throw it out there that maybe we could do a half day for the town and then a half day for the school, as we've all been discussing these issues for quite a while now. So if that's something that the council wants to consider, we might be able to bring that to Baker Tilly.
I'm wide open. Oh, Wade, one thing I'd ask, could they give us a copy? It might have to be redacted, but I'd love to see a product that they've done for a town and school. Sure. And it's just, I don't know what I don't know, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I have in my mind what I want to see, but...
If they won't, I bet I can get one from a neighboring.
Okay, that's even better. But give us a baseline, right, of what...
100%. And they laid out references for us as well. I think they put 7 references down. Have we followed up? Can we just get some feedback from other towns that worked with them?
Yes.
Because if we learn from some of their theoretical mistakes, then we can...
Yeah.
That'd be great.
And the one thing I just want to say to council as well, and I think I've said this a couple of times, I do expect y'all to get out in the community as much as your schedule allows. Go to the Chamber, the Metroport Chamber of Commerce, the mayor's meetings, all this stuff they have to go meet. I mean, I actually have a really good relationship with the Trophy Club mayor and the Roanoke mayor. I'm going to meet with the new South Lake mayor, but just all those relationships we can get to leverage information. I always feel like Westlake figured out on their own, where there's a lot of people have done what we're trying to do. So what is the motion here, Wade? What do you want done here to just...
You've given me direction. That's all I need.
Okay, and you got that?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Okay, thank you all very much. That's good. And I'm very excited about getting to this point. Agenda item K6, consider and act to approve a date and time. This is a fun part of our agenda. A date and time for town council governance training and TEA mandated training. Wade.
I'll actually
and
let
Diana trying to, everybody's getting out the calendars.
Yes.
Yes, Mayor and Council, we have narrowed the dates down even since this staff report was sent out. And so Saturday, July 13th, the only person I need to know if Councilmember Quint would be available on that date.
Okay, so is Saturday the preference?
The Saturday is the only date that everyone has committed to being there on that date.
No pressure.
I charge a premium, but I'll...
And so council would need to decide if you wanted to do that in the starting early or in the afternoon. I think we're thinking it's going to be 4 hours. Is that right, Wade?
Yes, that's correct.
8 to 12. How's that?
That's up to council. So,
who wants morning or afternoon? I would go afternoon if possible.
I could care less.
I don't mind.
We will probably need a motion for the date and the time. And please vote.
I did compromise at 10 to 2. No, I'm kidding. What time?
I can do that if you want. 10 to 2?
Oh, let's do a joke, but okay.
No.
Okay. So, can someone make a motion to have our governance training on July 13th from 10 to 2?
So moved.
Yeah, is that good?
So moved.
Good with everybody here, so.
Okay, yeah. So moved.
Get a second?
Sure, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's approved. Diana, thank you. Wade, recap council direction.
Yes, sir. So I have 3 pieces of direction. First was Dr. Ritchie will be looking into bidding out the food service at the academy over the next year and just ensuring that what we have is the best of quality and price. And then also for myself with strategic planning, we're going to try to get Baker and Tilly here at our next meeting to discuss scope and deliverables and report on the references that Baker Tilly has provided us.
Perfect. Thank you, Wade. Any future agenda items above and beyond what we have? And I think, Wade, you sent out
yes, sir.
An email to everybody.
At your desk, again, we had a little software glitch. It ate a staff report. It also ate it ate the future agenda report. So what you have at your dais is the most recent future report on all the items that I'm working on currently for a future agenda. If you have any question on any of those items, then please feel free to reach out to me.
Okay, any other questions, any issues? You guys, sorry this went a little longer than I thought, but I appreciate it all. Meeting's adjourned at 7:03. Thank you, everybody. Next meeting is July 15th at 4 o'clock. Thanks, everybody. Thank you all. You